Welcome to the Albuquerque Journal's Fast Break High School Basketball Show with your host, James Yodice. This show is sponsored by Western New Mexico University.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Fast Break, the Albuquerque Journal's high school basketball podcast. I am James Yodice. I am the prep sports editor here at the Albuquerque Journal. Welcome. It is Valentine's Day, so as you hear this, I hope all of you had a good Valentine's Day as you hear this on Thursday or later in the week. We got a lot of basketball to talk about today, obviously, and we're getting right up to it. We've only got 10, 11 days left now in the regular season, which ends on February 24th. So we got teams scrambling for position out there, and we got a lot of big basketball games coming up over the next couple of weeks before we segue into district tournaments. You will have noticed I've got my Miami Dolphins. Those of you who know me well know I'm a diehard Dolphins fan. I've got my Dolphins gear on today. I'm a little sad football season's over, so I wanted to pay tribute to my Dolphins today after another tough season. So please bear with me there. Thoughts and prayers are welcome. So let's get into it. I want to begin with some notes before we start talking about some specific boys and girls activities. We had two players here in the Albuquerque metro area, both reached the 1,000-point milestone just in the last few days. Eva Love, the outstanding guard for La Cueva, reached 1,000 points last week, I believe, against West Mesa. Eva has already committed and signed to play for the Air Force Academy. She's been a tremendous player for La Cueva, an awesome kid, too. So congratulations to Eva. Tuesday night, which would be last night as I sit here and record, Noah Perry from Hope Christian reached the 1,000-point threshold in a very key win over Albuquerque Academy. We'll talk about that more shortly. So congratulations to them. On a coaching standpoint, Joe Carpenter, I had it on as a guest back in early January. He's the Hobbs girls basketball coach. He achieved his 500th career victory and 200th with Hobbs as Hobbs beat Carlsbad the other night. It's important to note Joe Carpenter ranks in the top 10, actually close to the top 5 now, in two different lists. The NMAA record keeping breaks down a couple of wins lists for coaches. Number one, coaches who have achieved wins only in New Mexico. And then there's a separate list that includes all their wins, including any they might have achieved outside the state. Joe Carpenter is inching up this list, and he's going to be threatening the top spot in a few more years if he continues to coach and if his teams continue to win at the pace they are winning at currently. So congratulations to Joe. He's a good guy. 500 career wins is a tremendous accomplishment. If you think about it, you're talking about, suppose you won 25 games a year for 20 years consecutively. That's what 500 wins means, if my math is correct, and I think it is. That is an unbelievable number and a staggering winning percentage for any coach. So Joe has had a lot of success both at Roswell and now at Hobbs. So good going, Joe. Congratulations. And we can't get through a podcast without mentioning a Bella Hines milestone. She achieved one the other night, which kind of flew under the radar a bit. And honestly, I didn't know about it either until somebody alerted it to me. It was actually her dad, Josh, who alerted it to me on Friday afternoon that Bella was close to breaking the all-time Albuquerque Public Schools scoring record, which she did. She scored 38 points, I believe, against Piedra Vista. This was last Friday, I think. So Bella Hines is now the all-time leading girls basketball scorer among girls who played at an APS program. Jill Shaver from El Dorado, who finished playing in 1990, she scored 2,101 points during her career. Bella, after her Friday night game, was up to 2,110, and she added to that number on Tuesday night against Sandy. I think she had 20 points on Tuesday night. So congratulations to Bella. And as a sidebar here, Marty Size, who is a New Mexico basketball historian, and for someone like me, an invaluable asset if I need help with stats, numbers, all-time lists of some sort or another. Marty was nice enough to pass me along the all-time APS list, and on it, I was actually surprised to learn there were only 3 girls that are actually over 2,000 that came from APS. Jill Shaver is one. She was, of course, a standout for Coach Don Flanagan. Bella Hines is the second one from El Dorado to make it and the third one overall. The other girl is Diva Vaughn, who is a tremendous player for Highland High School. I believe she finished with 2,076 points. So we've only got the three girls from APS that have ever surpassed 2,000 points. And there are less than 20, I believe, on the whole list for the entire state. So it's a tough list to get on. But Bella now, the all-time leading scorer among APS girls. Her next milestone would be the all-time metro area record, which is 2,456 points by Juliana Aragon from Bernalillo, who finished playing in 2022. I don't think Bella can get there this year. They would have to have, I think, a pretty deep state tournament run for her to play enough games, and she'd have to score big in all these games to get to that point. I don't see that happening by the end of this season, maybe, but it would certainly happen very early in her senior season at El Dorado. So that'll be her next milestone. Juliana Aragon, by the way, is 10th all-time in the state on the all-time scoring list. So when Bella catches up to Juliana Aragon, whenever that is, she will crack the top 10 all-time, and then from there it's just a matter of how high she goes. So congratulations to Bella, who's just been amazing and has brought as much attention to girls basketball in New Mexico as just about anybody I can think of. So, congrats to all these kids, Eva Love, Noah Perry, Bella Hines, milestone weeks for all of them.
Education and training at Western New Mexico University is accessible from every corner of the land of enchantment, providing limitless opportunities towards success for more than a century. And now, through the New Mexico Opportunity Scholarship, tuition and fees are covered for anyone looking to start or start over. Along with free tuition, books are always included for every WNMU student, assuring your only worry is how far you can actually go. Lift off toward your future and endless potential at WNMU today.
Okay, moving along. Why don't we start getting into some of the nuts and bolts of the key basketball that has been going on the last few days and that we've got coming up this week, the penultimate week of the regular season. I can't believe we're already this deep into the regular season. We're going to begin with Volcano Vista's boys, if only for this reason. So at my last podcast, I told you that Volcano Vista and Atrisco Heritage had a bit of a scuffle at the end of their game. That would have been a week ago yesterday, Tuesday. And by the time I did my podcast, I really didn't have any updated information. But as it turns out, Volcano Vista had three players that were suspended for their next game against Cleveland, which, of course, is one of the best teams in the state. Included in those suspensions were their freshman sensation, David Lunn, and their top on-ball defender, David Gutierrez, who both had to sit out the Cleveland game. So I was thinking if you were going to get Volcano Vista, that would have been the night to do it when they played Cleveland down those two particular players, and they were down one of their reserves as well. So what happens is Volcano Vista goes into Cleveland, missing two of their starters, two key starters, and two of their very important players, and they go and just beat up on Cleveland, 76-52. It was a shockingly one-sided result given the personnel issues that Volcano Vista faced. But if you're thinking about statement victories, and not like Volcano Vista needs to make any of these. I mean, they've been on the greatest run over the last couple of seasons, and they're going for sort of an unprecedented three-peat if you're talking about an Albuquerque school, next month at the state tournament. Volcano Vista goes into Cleveland, a team, which is the only team that's beaten Volcano Vista this season, and beats them by 24 points. And I was at the game, and I was thinking psychologically, this is going to be very hard, in my opinion, for Cleveland to recover from. They were already having enough trouble beating Volcano Vista at full strength, and then Volcano Vista comes in missing these two kids and really puts it to Cleveland. Now, Volcano Vista was down 9 early in this game. They had a 22-0 run in the second quarter to take control. But I was thinking the whole game, the whole second half, how is Cleveland going to come back from a game and a loss like this where I'm sure, I'm 100% positive, the Cleveland kids figured, we got a good chance to beat this team tonight, and maybe we should beat this team tonight. And instead, Volcano Vista comes in and just puts it to them being shorthanded. Psychologically, that is going to be a tough thing for Cleveland to recover from going forward against Volcano Vista, not necessarily against other teams. But if Cleveland can't beat Volcano missing those two kids, I don't know how they beat them at all going forward, either in the district tournament or in the state tournament, if they happen to run into each other at the state tournament. So this was one of those games where Volcano Vista, who already has such a great record against other great teams. I mean, they've beaten, Sandia a couple of times. They beat Oregon Mountain. They beat Cleveland now 4 times out of 5. They've beaten all the good teams on their schedule, and usually by pretty good margins. Atrisco Heritage is on that list. Now Volcano Vista goes into Cleveland, beats Cleveland by 24, shorthanded, and this was, for me, their most impressive win, maybe of this entire 3-year run they've had. That was a crazy good performance. Cleveland's a very good basketball team, and Volcano Vista just dominated them for about the last 2.5 quarters. So other schools that are looking at Volcano Vista and thinking, how do we beat this team? I don't know. There may not be an answer. In basketball, of course, anything can happen over 32 minutes, especially at the state tournament. If you get a key kid or two into foul trouble, you run into a hot team. You never know for sure. But honestly, if Volcano Vista can do that to Cleveland, missing the kids they were missing, it's got to be dispiriting if you're a team that's hoping to win a state title and you're thinking, how do we beat Volcano Vista? Because if we want to win state, we're going to have to beat them at some point, whether it's in the first round or the quarters or the semis or the championship game. So for Volcano Vista, that kind of win could not have been good emotionally, not just for Cleveland, but for other teams thinking they've got a shot to beat them. And, of course, we'll see how it plays out. We still have a month left in the season. But that was just an incredible display under the circumstances for Volcano Vista, a team that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone anyway, and yet still found a way to do exactly that. So moving on, West Mesa, when we sat down a week ago, West Mesa was leading District 2-5A and had a 2-game lead over, I think it was La Cueva and Sandia at the time. As I said here today, a week later, West Mesa has lost its last 2 games. They lost a game at home to La Cueva. They lost a game on Tuesday night at Farmington. So now that district is wide open. La Cueva is now tied with them for first place in that league. La Cueva beat West Mesa the other day on Saturday, 71-63. And La Cueva, to their credit, La Cueva was missing its leading scorer, Dylan Chavez, who had, I believe, an ankle injury he suffered in the previous game against El Dorado. And one of their other top players, Daniel Lovato, who's one of their top scorers and just another big athletic kid inside for La Cueva, which is already so big anyway. They're like a small college team with their size. Daniel Lovato only played maybe half a dozen minutes because he was in foul trouble, serious foul trouble the whole way. So they got not much out of him, missing Dylan Chavez, and they still went on the road and beat West Mesa by 8. That was a super impressive win. And La Cueva is one of those teams. They are building momentum. I'm telling you, they got off to a bit of a slow start in their district, and which opened with them losing to West Mesa at home. So La Cueva is starting to build up some momentum. They've got a bunch of depth on this team. Kids like Cam Dyer, their tall kid, Eric Jacobson, right on down the line. Brandon Bartlett, who's one of those sneaky under the radar key contributors to La Cueva. They're getting contributions from other players, and they went in there, got a win against West Mesa, which was very impressive. So now La Cueva is in position to win the regular season. We'll have to see. There's still so many swing games that we still have coming up. So over the next 10 or 11 days, we've got a lot of head-to-head games between Farmington and West Mesa, La Cueva, Sandia, El Dorado even, which is certainly a team that can play spoiler. They're good enough to do that. So we'll have to see how that district plays out. But West Mesa, we'll have to see how they respond. They were going along very nicely. They won their first 5 district games. Now they've lost their last 2. So we'll see how the Mustangs respond. This is still a very good team, but in a district that is so deep, you're going to run into a loss or two. It's inevitable. All these teams have experienced this: Farmington, La Cueva, West Mesa, Sandia. All these good teams that are ranked in the top 10 have had a setback or two. So not unusual, but we'll see how West Mesa responds going forward. In District 5A, Las Lunas looks to be in good position. They have a 2-game lead now over Santa Fe and Albuquerque High, and that's primarily because Santa Fe hit a half-court shot to beat Albuquerque High the other day on Saturday afternoon. Albuquerque High had taken a 2-point lead, I believe, with 4.2 seconds left. Santa Fe inbounds from underneath their basket. They inbound it in the backcourt. The kid gets up to the half-court line. A couple of Albuquerque High defenders close in on him, And he just, there's no time left really for him to dribble around it. So he just heaves up a shot, which goes in from half court. So Santa Fe beats Albuquerque High 56-55, kind of getting the Bulldogs back for a game Albuquerque High won in Santa Fe to start the district year. So now you've got those two teams, Santa Fe and Albuquerque High, battling for second place. But Los Lunas was the real winner the other day because now they have a 2-game lead. So they're in good position, even though they still have to play Santa Fe again, and I think Albuquerque High again. They're still in very good position to win the regular season and make sure they lock up a first-round home game for state. And believe me, winning the regular season is important for that very reason. For anybody, boys team or a girls team, you win your district, you have a great chance to host a home game in the first round of the state tournament, and that's important for a lot of schools. Many teams are just more comfortable playing in their home gyms. So if you win your regular season, you have a good chance. It's not a slam dunk, so to speak, but you have a good chance to get a home game in the first round of state and get yourself to the pit. So as we switch over to Class 4A, District 6 4A, which is the most competitive district at the top of any 4A district, Hope Christian wins at home on Tuesday night over Academy, 72-69. So Hope Christian is 5-1 in District. Valley, which was off on Tuesday, they are 4-1. Hope is visiting Valley on Friday night, a game that I'll be watching. So Hope has already beaten Valley once in overtime when they played at Hope. Now the Huskies are going to go into Valley. Valley still has 3 district games left. Hope only has 2. So the winner of this game is going to be sitting pretty because they're going to kind of be done playing against the top-heavy contenders in this district. Bernalillo and Del Norte are also in this district, but Valley, Academy, and Hope have all had perfect records in district play against those two teams. So Friday night's game will be ostensibly for the regular season title. Of course, not guaranteed. You still have to take care of business the last week of the season. But the winner on Friday night almost certainly is going to win the regular season. All these teams, Academy, Hope, and Valley, are all going to be, I'm certain, top 8 seeds for state. They're all going to get home games. That's not really an issue, but, it's a pride thing. And Valley, I know, didn't feel like it played all that great when they lost to Hope in overtime a couple of weeks ago. So that is going to be an interesting rematch on Friday night in the North Valley, and I'm sure the North Valley fans will show up in a big way. Before we get into the girls, one other boys' note I wanted to mention, Legacy Academy. I went out and watched them on Monday night. They're a Class 1A program, ranked number 9 or number 8 now in the latest coaches poll. Legacy was at home the other night against Bosque School, which is a 3A school, so that's 2 divisions higher than Legacy. And Bosque is ranked number 4 in Class 3A. Legacy went out and beat Bosque, a really impressive win, 49-43, and outplayed them. Honestly, Legacy was the better team that night. Monday night games are unusual, and both of them had big games the following evening. But for Legacy, this was their best win of the season. They're being coached by Brian Joyce, who used to be the La Cueva boys basketball coach and is a former college coach as well. They are coming along. That looks like a very nice 1A team. Not a big team, but they've got some athleticism. They got a couple of kids that can score the basketball, a little bit of bulk. So it'll be interesting to see how Legacy's season plays out when we get into the state tournament. But if you're talking about a team that's on the bubble to get a first-round home game, Legacy fits that description. And beating a team like Bosque, which is certain to win its 3A district, that's a good bit of currency, for Legacy. So congrats to them. That is a nice win for Coach Brian Joyce and the Silverbacks. So last bit of business before we get out today. We're going to talk some girls basketball. We're going to start in District 2-5A. Farmington is the new number 1 team. The last time Farmington moved into the number 1 slot, they came down here. They played Sandia. Sandia whipped them 64-42. And that was right at the start of district. Sandia went up to Farmington last week. Farmington beat them, I believe, by 8 or 9 points. So Farmington and Sandia now tied for first place in District 2-5A. And as the same with the boys, there are many key head-to-head games that remain in this district. You've got 4 really good teams: Farmington, Sandia, La Cueva, El Dorado, which was ranked number 5, I believe, in the latest poll, and has been playing terrific basketball. They whipped La Cueva last week by 23 points, which was kind of a surprising result for me. Anyway, so you got 4 teams in this district that could all end up with first-round home games for state. and still a lot of head-to-head games. Farmington's coming down to Albuquerque on Thursday night to play Bella Hines and El Dorado, but Farmington's coming off this win over Sandia last weekend. Sandia rebounded, beat El Dorado on Tuesday night. Good rebound win for the Matadors. But Farmington certainly had to be remembering their visit down here when they just honestly didn't play well and were totally dominated by Sandia pretty much the whole way. But Farmington's still going to be a major factor as we get into the final couple of weeks of the season. I do think El Dorado remains one of those teams it's hard to know how they're going to end up for state seeding purposes. The win over La Cueva does them a tremendous amount of good, and they are right in the mix. So much might depend on the district tournament, but they are right in the mix to get a first-round home game. And this is important only because, Bella Hines didn't get a chance to play in the pit at the state tournament last year. I think everyone, I think fans, I think teams, I think the tournament organizers, the NMAA, would love to see Bella Hines get into the pit. I think that would be just a fantastic attraction for everyone to see her in that venue, simply because she's good enough to beat just about anybody on her own. We'll have to see how that plays out. But, yeah, this district's going to have, I think, four teams that have a pretty good chance. 3, I think, for sure will be in the top 8. I think we'll end up with 4. It's going to be close, but we'll have to see. Like I said, we still have a couple of weeks and then district tournament activity before we get there. District 5-5A is another district I wanted to talk about briefly. Albuquerque High girls had a big win over Los Lunas last week, 30-29. That was a first-place battle in District 5-5A. So Albuquerque High now has a lead on Los Lunas. I do believe they still have another game to play before the end of the regular season. But, one of the questions that's going to come up, and we went through this last year with Albuquerque High especially, and Leilani Love, their outstanding senior forward, and as good a player as we had in the state, really, outside of somebody like Bella Hines or Sydney Benally, that kind of group. Albuquerque High won its district last year, but ended up on the road in the first round for state. I think they played at Sandia, if I'm not mistaken. We're gonna have something similar unfold, I think, this year. I don't think there's any way the regular season champion in that district, whether it's Los Lunas or Albuquerque High, and Albuquerque High is having a great season. I mean, they're having a fantastic season. I think they're up to 19 wins now. Even that record, I don't think the metrics, their rankings with the coaches or with Max Preps, which are both part of the criteria, I don't say Albuquerque High, even if they win this district, is going to end up with a home game in the first round, and I know that was a point of contention last year. A lot of Albuquerque High fans were not pleased that they won their district and still had to go on the road. Fortunately for them, they only had to travel a few miles to Sandia. But I think we're going to end up with a similar situation in a couple of weeks. The volume of quality teams out there is such that the winner of this district, whoever it is going to end up on the road in the first round. And this can be a source of complaint in other sports as well, not just basketball. Teams that win their district but still have to go on the road for a first-round playoff game. And, of course, this is why the system was set up the way it was, to reward the best teams and not just give an automatic home game to a district champion that might come from a very weak district. And Albuquerque High's district is not very strong. It's not. Outside of Los Lunas, this is not a terribly strong district. And Albuquerque High, isn't really a factor in any of the top 10 polls either. And I think they're number 11 even by the Max Preps count. So this can be a real sore point for fans in multiple sports, whether it's boys basketball or girls basketball or football or whatever. I like the way it's done now, only in the sense that teams don't get a de facto home game simply because they were an average team that won a bad district. We've seen that happen quite a bit, where teams got home games that didn't deserve home games. And when we went to the seeding system, like in basketball 1 through 16, that sort of took that out of play, and we eliminated that as a mandatory thing. And I like that because it should reward the best teams. Just because you win your district, that should not guarantee you anything other than an automatic berth at state, which that still goes with the territory, but it shouldn't guarantee you a home game, whatever the sport is. I like it the way it is because the best teams will get rewarded at the end of the year. Like I said, this is not a guarantee. Albuquerque High could still play its way in to a top 8. We'll have to see. But at this point, even if they win their district, hard to see that happening. But under new coach Terry Morrison, Albuquerque High is having a fantastic year, and this is still a pretty young group. So Albuquerque High is one of those teams we're going to have to keep an eye on going forward, not just for the rest of this season, but going forward, in subsequent seasons. So. That kind of wraps things up for me for today. We're going to have a podcast next week when we're talking about the last week of the regular season. A lot of districts still up in the air. We could see some playoff games, like Farmington and Sandias girls, for example, could end up in a playoff game. I don't even know where that game would be played if we have one. It might end up in a place like Cuba. Not sure. We'll have to see. We have so many districts that haven't had a chance to play out completely. But by the time we sit down and I visit with you next week, most of these districts are going to be, I think, solidified, and we'll have a couple, of course, that are going to go down to the wire the last day or two of the regular season. So as far as basketball goes, that's it. Couple other quick notes before I get out. Regional wrestling is coming up this weekend. The girls had their regionals last weekend in Bayard, which is where Cobre High School is. The boys' regionals are coming up this weekend. El Dorado, I believe, is hosting the 5A, and I think Belen is the host site for 1A through 4A. State tournaments coming up in swimming and wrestling next week. We're going to talk more about that next week. And, of course, we're already underway with the spring sports. We're going to have games coming up very soon here in the metro area. We'll get into that a little bit down the road as well. In the meantime, thanks for watching. You can find my podcast at abqjournal.com or on YouTube. Same with Jeff Grammer's Lobo Men's Basketball podcast, which are immensely popular. And Jeff's podcast you can find on multiple platforms beyond just the two I just mentioned. So, as always, if you have any feedback for me, reach out to me. I'm happy to hear any comments or suggestions going forward. In the meantime, we encourage you to please read, hear, and watch. Have a great week, everybody.